Hello. A lot of you out there have probably seen Mysteries at the Museum series on the Travel Channel. And today we are going to be filming a similar segment at the Ross Historical Center in Sidney, Ohio. This segment will feature the Sidney High all-boy band. I have with me today three special guests, and first up is Jane Bailey, the curator. So Jane, come in here. I understand you have a couple of artifacts here that have been on display at the Historical Center. So why don't you go ahead, tell us a little bit about the album.
Oh, thank you, Larry. Well, right here we have our 1961 album from the Sidney High All-Boy Marching Band, and it features a variety of songs from their halftime shows. The band at this time was directed by Alan Clark. He started at Sidney High in 1955, and there are a total of 31 songs on this album, some of which are the National Emblem and, let's see, American Fanfare, Way Down Yonder, London Bridge. There's just a whole variety that they use during their halftime shows. And we also have here a Letterman jacket that was owned by Dave Menier. He graduated from Sidney High School in 1966, and he played the E-flat alto horn in the marching band.
Okay, thank you. We also have two other guests with us, so if you'll excuse us, we'll bring in Mark Deam. Mark Deam was in the drum line in the 60s.
Correct.
And apparently you were in the band 3 years?
3 years, yes.
3 years, okay. And when we first contacted you, you just told us so many wonderful stories about the people in the band, a lot of good memories that you shared with us. But I wanted to start, you brought with you a second album.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that, because your drum cadences and so on are on this album.
Well, there's no cadences on it. This was recorded in 1964 in the auditorium, which is where the other record was recorded also, was in the auditorium at the present Sidney High School. So we've started working on that after football season sometime, and then we recorded it sometime in the spring. And we went over this many, many times, and Mr. Clark would, he was taping everything, and then I think he probably ended up splicing a lot of things together. And, but it was the concert band, it was the orchestra, and it was a mixed chorus. So all three were on that record.
Right, so this one was halftime shows, halftime music.
Correct.
And this was more concert music.
Correct.
Band and choir.
Yes.
Okay.
And orchestra.
And orchestra.
And orchestra.
Okay. Right.
And this one actually had the chorus on it too. They sang Sidney High on this one, but everything else is band music.
Okay. All right. You also brought to us a picture. If you want to sort of point out the things. These are various uniforms,
yes,
styles that were used by the actual all-boys band.
Right. These are the last four uniforms used by the all-boy band.
Okay.
And Mike Baer painted this. He came up with this idea to paint this. He was never in the band. He always wished he'd gone to Sidney, but he didn't. And he came up with this idea, and he talked to Doug Stewart and myself about doing this. And so it came out very well. And he donated some of these, and the alumni band sold these. And we can still get more if anybody wants one. But starting out, this is the first uniform I remember. Of course, I was born in 1947, and this uniform came out in 1948. And then they got this uniform in 1955, just before they went to the Cherry Blossom Festival. This would have been in the spring of 1955. And then in 1963, they got this uniform, which is the one I had the 3 years I was in the band. And then in 73, they went to the last one. And then girls were put in the band in the fall of 1973.
Okay, and then it lost the special all-boys band and became Sidney High School Marching Band.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Which is still is today.
All right, so you can sort of see an evolution of, I noticed that the uniform, or the jacket here, would have been pretty hot for, wearing around in the summer. Did the uniforms get lighter as?
No.
No.
They were wool.
They were always wool,
yeah,
and very heavy.
Yeah, when it was warm out, they were very hot. I know when we always wore uniforms Memorial Day. 4th of July we did, and we wear, I don't remember what we wore, shorts or something, but we'd always wore uniforms on Memorial Day, and they'd always tell you, don't lock your knees when you're standing at the courthouse.
Now you just did the segue for me. I was going to ask you about what type of local parades you did. You mentioned Memorial Day.
Right.
And what other types of local parades did you do?
Well, in the 60s, they still had a 4th of July parade. They'd have a homecoming parade that we'd march in. Any parade that was in Sidney, we would march in.
Okay.
So I don't know that there were a lot more than those that I remember.
Okay.
Memorial Day and 4th of July, homecoming, those were 3 that definitely did. I remember, I think maybe when I was a sophomore in 63, 64, Sidney was named an All-America City. And they had a parade downtown for that. I remember marching in that.
Okay.
I think that's
And then you also elevated the reputation of the band by entering contests?
Yeah, most of what I remember is when I was a sophomore, which was Alan Clark's last year, unfortunately for all of us, because he was a great director. But the first contest we went to was in Tip City. It was the Mum Festival. And there was a parade. We weren't judged on the parade. We did a halftime show, and we were judged on that. And I remember being in the bleachers afterwards, and they were announcing, it's not like the day where you get a 1, a 2, or a 3 or something, you're first, second, or third. And I remember being in the bleachers, and they started announcing, they start with 3rd place, and all these upperclassmen are saying, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. You know, they won first. So somebody else got 3rd, and they go to the 2nd place, and they said, no, we don't want that one either. And sure enough, somebody else got it, and then they announced first, and then we won that one.
That's awesome.
So then after that, we went down to Fairborn, and I don't know what the name of that was. You were judged on a parade. It was like a 5-mile parade. It was a long parade. Of course, you were only judged on a short area where you were passing a reviewing stand. But then we went and did a halftime show afterwards. And we got 1st place in the parade. We got 2nd place in the halftime show, which was very disappointing. But come to find out afterwards, and I knew nothing about it during the performance, but we always entered in 2 company fronts, and then each side would lead into an S playing Beautiful Ohio, where there were 3 guys in the front and 3 guys in the back row that were 5 yards separated from where they were supposed to be, which probably wasn't so bad for the ones that were following, but the other guy had to lead, and he was 5 yards off, and we ended up getting 2nd place after that.
Wow, that would be disappointing. But earlier, I guess in the 50s, they actually won a national competition?
Yes, in 1955, they went to the Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C., and they won that contest. And I don't know if that was a parade, if it was a halftime show, but whatever it was, they won 1st place in that. Their bands were all over the country from there. So it was a big deal.
It would be a big deal. The Cherry Blossom Festival to this day is still a big event because of the beauty of the blossoms and thousands and thousands of people that go. So you're really vested in this. It was an important activity for you, but you told me earlier there's a generational connection?
Yes, my father graduated in 1940. He's now 95. He was in the band for 6 years, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, which was down at the school where Joey Lamb Park is now. So he was in that for 6 years.
And he played?
He played trumpet.
Trumpet. And I said earlier, that's the guys you try to drown out with your drum cases.
Sure,
right? Yeah, sure. Okay, a little competition within the ranks, right? Now you mentioned something. He was in 6 years. This is supposed to be a all-boys high school band? Wasn't always that way.
Well, it was until 1973-74.
Well, I'm talking about, he wasn't held back 2 years in high school, was he?
No.
Well, when did he start?
7th grade.
Oh, okay, because the junior high and high school were right side by side?
7 through 12 were all at the same building.
Okay.
So if you were good, well, of course, at that time, you know, I don't know if they had tryouts or anything like that. Later on, they'd have tryouts, and you had to be good enough to make the band. Because they marched 64, and they took the best 64, depending on the instrumentation and stuff. So once they moved out to Campbell Road, there were only 3 grades there. So downtown, they could draw kids from 6 grades. When they got out there, they could only draw from 3 grades. So the 61 record, that band, that was the first year they were at the high school. They only had 48 in the band. when I was a sophomore, we had 64, but then when I was a junior, I think we had 56 or something. And it just depended how many people would go out for it.
Right. It would have been nice to have a consistent number every year, and then your formations would always work without alteration and so on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the fact that I guess you're donating this record as an artifact.
Sure.
It's going to stay here, so it will be on display and available. If they have something to play on it, it's going to be harder and harder. Well, turntables are making a little bit of a comeback, I guess. All right. So I think that you've given us a lot to think about. And it was the all-boys band until 1973.
All 73, yes.
And then that's when girls were included. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Now we have one more guest coming up, and this guest is drum major Doug Stewart. Doug,
nice to meet you, Larry.
I'd say this is the first time that I've met you. Well, it's the first day that I've met you, right?
That's correct.
And I told you earlier I'm a little bit intimidated because there might be a rank or two of trumpets and a row of trombones and a variety of drums and multiple drummers, but
Correct.
it sounds a little bit like the movies, you know, Highlander, where there's only one immortal. There can be only one drum major.
That was correct.
And you have an interesting connection. Mark just mentioned they could draw on 7 through 12 when the buildings were consolidated or together, but you cheated a little bit even on that. Tell us your background.
I did cheat a little bit on that. I actually started in the band, and my picture is on the front page of this album on the cover. I started in the band when I was in the 5th grade at Emerson Elementary School, and had the privilege that I could leave Emerson during 4th period at the high school and go over and practice with the high school band every day. So I would go over and practice and come back to Emerson. So I started in the 5th grade. I was a twirler in front of the band, and worked my way through all those years until I became drum major in 1965 and 66 and 67 when I graduated. So it's been a nice run.
Now today you brought, well, I guess actually 3 artifacts with you.
Yes.
And I understand that this drum major or twirler hat, you had to rescue this. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, I'll hold this up just a minute so you can get a better view of it. But this hat was my first hat that I used as a twirler when I was in the band. They bought this for me. And of course, later on when I became drum major, I had a taller hat and that type of thing. But this has special meaning to me because it was my first one. And Mark, at one time, had attended a meeting at the high school, and they were rummaging through some old things, and they found this hat, and they were going to throw it away. So Mark rescued this for me, and I've had it on display in my home office ever since. So it's been a nice thing.
That's awesome.
Yep.
And then as a drum major, I've always wondered the purpose of a drum major. I mean, do you set the tempo? Do you set the stride? I know that in Arlington Cemetery, those guys have it down to 14 inches every stride and so on.
Right.
What are your roles, first of all? And then
Okay, our band, first of all, marched 8 steps to 5 yards, and the ball of your foot had to hit the yard line on the 8. So it was always known as 8 to 5, 8 to 5, 8 to 5. So yeah, my job was pretty much to lead the front of the band, do roll-offs, have them play music, make sure that the lines are straight all the time, and just be out front. And I enjoyed that so much. I did bring a couple batons that I had. This baton here is the one that I used partly as a twirler, and also then when I was drum major for the first 2 years, I used this baton. And then this baton, my wife bought this for me as a Christmas gift before I was in the senior position in 1967. And this is an exact replica, or the same baton, that the drum major of the Ohio State University Marching Band uses and still does today. So this is manufactured down in Tip City, Ohio by the name of John Gray. he makes every one of them for the Ohio State Band. So I was just fortunate enough that he made me one when I was in high school.
I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
Can you twirl it and bounce it off the turf and bring it back?
I was able to do
Oh, I've
that.
always been amazed.
I was able to do that. I'm not as good as I used to be.
Well, I don't know if any of us are.
I could toss it down and it would come right back to me.
But speaking of being as good as you used to be, you still are a drum major with the alumni band
Yes.
here in Sidney?
Mark Deam and I got together with a couple other people, and we organized what we call the Sidney Alumni Band. And we take even seniors out of this high school band. They're allowed to march with us, and we do parades and that sort of thing. So it's been a kind of a lifelong learning situation, but Mark does a great job, and so I still lead the alumni band.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome to continue to use some life lessons later in years and try and keep others involved as well.
That's right.
Doug, thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Being here.
Nice to meet you.
Right, so I'd like Jane to come back in here for a moment, our curator. And, you know, I make a point here, I think that the point we're trying to make, you know, that artifacts are not just historical things. Obviously, from talking to both Mark and Doug, we have seen that they inspire memories and they help people hold on to memories as well. Anyone that might see this might have some special information about the Sidney All-Boys Band. Perhaps a personal experience, like they participated, or having seen them, how the community responded to them. They may even have some kind of artifact that they would be willing to donate or loan for display to the Historical Center. And if they were interested in relaying that information or those things to you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, first off, I want to say we love hearing everybody's stories, and especially memories that artifacts that they see on display at the Ross Center bring. And if anybody has any memories they'd like to share, we invite you to give us a call at 498-1653 or send an email to shelbyhistory2@embarkmail.com, or even stop by our Ross Center for a visit. We're open Monday through Friday from 1 to 5. And we would love to talk to you.
And the address here is?
It's at 201 North Main.
201
here in Sidney, Ohio.
North Main. Not what are we, a block or two from the courthouse?
Yeah, we're just 1 block north of the courthouse.
Okay, all right. Well, why don't all of the presenters come on up here, and Mark and Doug. So I will just close by thanking everyone that participated today. Of course, we have Jane, the curator, Mark, the drumline, and the one and only drum major, Doug, and I am Larry Gratz. Thank you so much for watching.